Record. Okay. Hi everybody who is here and hi to everybody who's about to join. My name is Katie. I'm a board member with Climate Smart Glacier Country, and I want to thank you for joining us today for this webinar as part of our Beyond Recycling, Making Zero Waste Work series. This is our first virtual series, and it's our fourth session of 6. We're learning as we go, but we've had a lot of great sessions so far, and this one in particular I'm really excited about. I've been thinking a lot about zero waste in this last year of the pandemic and the way that we changed our behaviors. We reverted to single use and disposables in the name of public health and safety, and really regressed on some of those positive behavior change things that we've done with, reusable mugs at your coffee shop and reusable bags at the grocery store. A lot of plastic came back into our lives, and a lot of wasteful packaging with people buying more things online. So it's been really top of mind. And this session in particular, I'm really excited about because we're going to meet 3 companies who are innovators in zero waste, who are bucking that trend of saying we don't need to use single-use plastics. We don't need to be so wasteful. Even in the time of a pandemic, there are ways to be supportive of more sustainable products and production models generally. So I'm excited to introduce them to you and just get started. There will be time for Q&A at the end, but if you have clarifying questions, please feel free to just drop them in the chat and we can clarify with our speakers as they go along. But there will be a nice section at the end where we can have some fun Q&A with each of our panelists. So first, I'm going to introduce Andrew Schroeder. He is the CEO and co-founder of Sasquatch Fuel, which is based in Montana here in Bozeman. So it's an adventure food company that uses omni-degradable packaging. Andrew grew up in Michigan and moved to Bozeman in 2008 to be close to the mountains and his father. So he'll be our first speaker. And then we have Paul Tasner up next. He's the co-founder and CEO of PulpWorks and has more than 40 years of supply chain experience. Founded in 2011, PulpWorks uses paper and agricultural waste to mold compostable packaging for consumer goods, thereby diminishing all the plastic waste that pollutes our landfills and waterways and oceans. Paul also has a great TED Talk on sustainability, entrepreneurism, and ageism. And I recently watched it. I highly recommend it. It's really great. And our final speaker will be Annika Grieve. She heads up the North American Business Development Team for Loop, which is TerraCycle's circular reuse platform that launched in 2019. TerraCycle is known for eliminating the idea of waste, and Loop enables consumers to purchase products in reusable packaging. She joined TerraCycle early last year and leads the brand and retail strategy for the North American market, focusing on new partnerships. So before we get started, I'll also do a shout out that we'll have our raffle giveaway at the end, and today's gift card is for Coffee Traders, our local coffee chain here. Oh, nope, sorry, Jill just corrected me. It's Flathead Lake Brewing. So one lucky attendee will win a gift card to Flathead Lake Brewing. So with that, I will kick it over to Andrew, and you can feel free to share your screen and start presenting.
Awesome. Let's see, is it showing up?
Yep. Looks great. Yep, I can see it.
Okay, one second here. All right. So hi, everyone. Thank you, Katie, for the introduction. I'm super excited to be here and have this opportunity to share a little snapshot about, our zero waste contributions at Sasquatch Fuel. So really quickly, Sasquatch Fuel, we're an adventure food brand. We specialize in outdoor nutrition, mainly through meals. Meals are lightweight, to be reconstituted with water, and our team's main focus is always giving back to conservation while reducing our overall footprint. So we're a Bozeman, Montana company, and we strive to preserve the backcountry for future generations to come. So to throw it all the way back to 2015, my father and I started this company. Picture of us to prove it with his little leg brace. So the idea was sparked 2 years prior to this photo, actually, while we were on one of our alpine fly fishing trips. The idea kind of stemmed from one common theme: littered packages, mainly meal pouches or just single use like snack packages. We found them in half burned in primitive campsites or shimmering back at us from the bottom of a lake or a river. And so this led to this idea of challenging the outdoor food industry to use more sustainable packages. So we strongly suggest, we strongly stand by pack out what you pack in, but we know that doesn't always happen. So we wanted to see here, we wanted our packaging to act as a last line of defense for the ecosystem and to reduce our overall packaging pollution in landfills. So we looked at what was currently being used by other companies, which was certified compostable, but it was made from a PLA material, polylactic acid. Many of you are probably familiar with it, derived from corn. But the whole thing of it is the PLA packaging would only break down in commercial compost facilities. And at the time in 2015, there actually was just one commercial compost facility in all of Montana, and it wasn't being used by the public. So this naive idea of okay, we want this packaging, we don't know if it exists, calling everybody I can, learning about packaging, and eventually I came into a company based out of Canada, and they had claimed to be using omnigradable packaging. So you might be wondering what the term omnigradable means. It just means that the material doesn't break down, or doesn't depend on water, heat, sunlight, or oxygen to degrade, just ever-present microbes in the environment. So at the time, the material was only being used for coffee bags. So I worked with the manufacturer to make sure that the gas transmission rate would allow for us to have shelf-stable food items, and for lab testing to be done to make sure that no toxins or leaching would be found in the food product after adding boiling water. So omnigradable material is simply just a poly film with an organic additive. This additive reacts with microbes to create an enzyme that can break long chain molecules into plastic pieces that are small enough for the microbes to consume completely. So you can think of it kind of like an acid just eating the pouch away. This reverts it back to the original elements, and the pouch leaves nothing behind but only water, CO2, and a small amount of organic biomass, which is beneficial to plant growth. Another thing is, you can see we meet several ASTM standards. We're FDA and SCF compliant. So the packaging we use, the omnigradable packaging, its claims are scientifically backed by independent labs like the Eden Research Laboratory and SGS. As you can see, this is a series of photos of the poly film we used in a lab simulated anaerobic landfill. As you can see, it took about 537 days for the material to fully break down to humus. When we looked at omnigradable packaging, we thought it was super important to look at the efficiency in the manufacturing process. So here we have a few data points that were provided by Flexible Packaging Association. This is just basically a comparison to the PLA material that was already mentioned and already in use in the market for backcountry meals. The data here actually reflects the 1,000 pouch equivalent. So omnigradable packaging consumes roughly 1,307 megajoules less, 26.6 kilograms less of fuel, and we emit 0.14 greenhouse gas tons of CO2 equivalent less, and uses 959 gallons of water less to produce as well. So overall in 2020, we reduced 600 pounds of non-hazardous waste, avoided 1.68 metric tons of CO2. We saved 11,508 gallons of water use, and we saved 4,357 kilowatt hours of energy. Real quick, we're 2% certified, so we donate at least 1% of our income every year towards conservation organizations. And the most important part to us is that we donate 1% of our time, which ends up being 20 hours per person, to either building trail or primitive campsite cleanups. And our Kicking Cactus Bowl meal is partnered with the Arizona Trail Association. So 20% of that meal's revenue gets donated every year to that organization for them to continue on with trail conservation. And lastly, when it comes to packaging and synthetic fibers and other non-sustainable products, you, the consumer, have the final say. In my experience, many companies will not innovate or create better solutions for zero waste unless they're incentivized or pressured to do so. So it's important to consider companies' ethics and actions before ordering their products. Don't be afraid to voice your concerns and demand better solutions from organizations, but also institutions. So that's my quick little snapshot. We're a small business. And yeah, thank you for your time. And I look forward to hearing some Q&A.
Thank you, Andrew. Great presentation.
Let me figure out how to get this off the screen.
I know all these virtual meeting platforms are all different. And for everyone attending, these slides will be shared in our newsletter and on the website. So you'll have these visual resources after the session if you want to go back and look at anything. If there are any clarifying questions, feel free to put them in the chat. If not, we can save them for the end with the broader Q&A. But I completely agree, Andrew, about companies needing to be incentivized or pressured in some way to do the right thing for the environment. Okay, well, let's move to Paul.
Thank you. By the way, I think 99% of what Andrew said resonated with me, and it's the way we feel about the very same issues. I didn't mean to suggest that 1% of it didn't resonate with me.
Thank you, Paul. I really appreciate that.
And I think you'll see as I go through my presentation that we feel absolutely the same way about some of these issues. Let me share the screen here. And how's that? Is that on my screen? We've got our little photos blocking part of it. I don't know. Is that blocking it for the viewers as well?
It looks great on my end.
Okay, excellent. As Katie said, the company is PulpWorks. We're founded, I keep saying 10 years ago, actually, 10 years ago this summer. Myself and my co-founder, Elena Olivari. I'm going to skip through a lot of these things because I want to get to the part that hopefully will be more novel to the viewers. Sadly, these images aren't novel. Andrew shared those in his as well. They've become all too commonplace, the amount of plastic pollution on our planet. It's pretty dreadful. But the good news is the sustainable packaging market is growing. And that's a good thing, of course. But the plastic industry is growing as well. And most notable is that the end of life cost of dealing with the plastic industry is growing as well. Just a little background about PulpWorks. We have manufacturing partners. I said 6 there. We actually have more than 6 partners now, but we have partners now across the globe that do our manufacturing for us. Just quickly, anecdotally, we didn't set out to have partners only overseas. We were looking for American partners or North American partners And when we started our business, nobody was interested in partnering with us. They thought we were too small. It would take too long before we had any volume that, you know, moved the needle as far as their business was concerned. And they turned us down. And there's quite a few companies that could have helped us in North America, but they simply weren't interested. Now they seem to be interested, but to be honest with you, we're not. Our partners overseas stuck with us right from the get-go, did some amazing things to help us get up on our feet. And we feel we want to respond by being loyal business partners. So we're happy with our partnership relationships. And sadly, none of them are in the US or Canada. We've got some really wonderful projects, or we've had some wonderful projects. We're doing one with Amazon now, and we've in the past done something with Electrolux and BASF and Beiersdorf, as well as Google, and we're doing something with Novo Nordisk, a Danish insulin manufacturer. So pretty broad spectrum of product types there. Filed a patent for a replacement for the plastic blister pack quite a few years ago. And sadly, it's never caught on because there's nothing cheaper than making a plastic blister pack. And unless you can match or beat the cheap price of a plastic blister pack, large consumer goods companies are not going to be interested. And just as Andrew shared, look for companies that really care about the environment. A very well-known cosmetic company told me that if my replacement for the plastic blister pack was 1/10 of a penny higher, she couldn't use it. Although she believed in it, she couldn't use it. And I thought that was pretty sad. But I think it's really emblematic of a lot of large consumer product companies. They just don't want to make the switch if it's going to cost them money. Not considering that there are so many other factors about making the switch that actually add to their bottom line. But when they just match up one package versus another, yes, it does end up being, you know, a penny or two higher. But there are so many other benefits that follow when you're leading a sustainable business. You attract more business, you attract more employees. The rewards are numerous, but when you just look at it package versus package, it's a pretty myopic way of looking at the world, frankly. Here's a list of companies that we've done business with, past and present. A lot of recognizable names there, I'm pleased to say. Now we'll get into the waste. We use agricultural and paper waste for our goods. We don't use all of the waste listed here on this image, but we do use several of them, particularly sugarcane, bamboo, cardboard, and we have worked with cocoa pod waste as well. But all of the rest of these agricultural waste are suitable for creating packaging. The fibers that can be turned into pulp, which can be turned into packaging, generally are found in the stems of these packages. I'm sorry, in the stems of these agricultural plants, not the leaves. That would be revolutionary if the leaves could serve, but it's usually the fibers found in the stems. Here's that package that I said we had received a patent for. You can see it's basically the plastic blister pack just flipped in reverse. Our blister is on the back of the package rather than the front of the package. And our blister is made of sugarcane waste, not PVC or PET plastic. Just another image of that same package. Here's a package that we used. Sugarcane, by the way, sugarcane waste is also called bagasse. We used a mixture of cotton waste and sugarcane waste to create this package. And I believe we did this for Google. Here's another example of cotton waste mixed with sugarcane waste. In fact, you can even tell where we got our cotton. It's from old athletic t-shirts that you can tell from the gray color. But candidly, that's a tough resource to keep replenishing, you know, collecting old athletic t-shirts. You know, to have that renewable source of supply for your manufacturing operation is very, very difficult. You know, we did it to prove a point that it can be done. Here we used bamboo waste to do a takeout container. Again, sugarcane waste for a pizza package. Probably the world's most expensive pizza package, which might also explain why it's not available today. Sorry, I couldn't resist. But it was very novel, and we were happy to partner with them. And we were hoping they'd succeed too. Here's sugarcane waste that used to replace the hot drink lids that we all know so well. The billions of hot drink lids that we all know so well. But again, you know, we're a penny or two higher. And in this case, you know, when you're making 10 billion of them or buying 10 billion, a penny or two makes a difference. And it's just hard to make inroads. Christmas ornaments. We did these for the Anthropology store chain, all made of sugarcane waste. Here's a cardboard waste that we did for a nonprofit that was seeking to reforest some areas that needed it so badly. Here was paper waste. It's not an image, but just our rendering of a paper waste package for shipping gas meters. Sorry. And sugarcane waste again for these medical kits for delivering children in rural India. The mortality rate among children born in the rural areas of India is pretty high. And so our client here came up with a way of providing an antiseptic kit for delivering children. It had all the things necessary for birth, all the tools, blankets, everything necessary to provide a safe birth. And rather than do it in plastic, they demanded that we do it in something that was biodegradable because they knew they were going to end up on the countryside. There are not a lot of industrial composting facilities in rural India, suffice it to say. Here's some more sugarcane waste for electronic product. Here's something we did that was a combination of sugarcane and post-consumer recycled cardboard. And here we demonstrated how you can seal molded fiber products. You can literally, through heat and pressure, create a bond between the seal and the molded fiber. And most of these, I believe, are PET. I'm sorry, but we also used PLA to see if it could be done with that, and it was doable. But I agree again with Andrew. PLA has gotten some really wonderful press as being a compostable plastic, a bioplastic, but the real truth of the matter is that unless it's disposed of in the right way, it's going to take, you know, several years to decompose. And but I think a lot of people are turning to PLA because they feel that it's a more suitable choice. Here we try to demonstrate how the plastic hangers that we're all too familiar with can be replaced with molded fiber, sugarcane, as well as post-consumer cardboard. Here we used cotton again. And just a quick run through again, just to show you the kinds of industries that can use this kind of, we did this for the cosmetics industry. This is for the pharmaceutical industry. More packaging for pharmaceuticals, cold chain packaging, diagnostic items also made of molded fiber. And again, the birthing kits, veterinary items. We did this project for an infectious research company. A tray for hematology, food delivery, electronics, and we've gotten some wonderful press that I'm very proud of, and we've won a bunch of awards that I'm also proud of. And as Katie said, watch my TED Talk for a 7-minute version of what we've been saying here today. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Paul. It's a great presentation. There are a couple clarifying questions that we can address now that came up in the chat.
Let me get my screen.
Sure. So the first one, is hemp a good fiber for you to use? Have you considered that?
Yes, it's a fabulous fiber. We don't have any partners. Our partners use locally sourced raw materials, in order to keep their carbon footprint as small as possible. So if they're using sugarcane or they're using bamboo, or, well, of course, almost everyone has access to post-consumer paper waste, but particularly agricultural waste, all of it is locally sourced. And none of our partners have accessibility to hemp as locally. And so, if we shipped hemp in from some, distant location, it wouldn't do much for the carbon footprint for that particular operation. But I have been told by learned chemical engineers in this business that hemp is a wonderful fiber for creating molded packaging. And they compared it a lot to sugarcane. And said, frankly, that it was even superior. So yes, yeah.
Well, I'm hopeful. I mean, in the modern age, we're passing more and more laws in support of, recreational marijuana or CBD, and hemp is booming in production around the country. I wonder, and I hope that maybe there are some local partners in the U.S. that you could partner with in some capacity, because there's a lot of byproduct waste that comes from hemp.
I agree. Yes, and if we have time, I have a wonderful anecdote about a hemp research that we did with hemp. But you'll tell me if we have time at the end of the.
Okay, perfect. I will.
It's a cautionary tale.
All right. Well, we'll move to Annika to do the final presentation, and then we'll dive into the rest of the Q&A.
All right. Can you just confirm, Katie, if you can see my screen? Big blue screen.
Yep, it just came up. Looks great.
Awesome. All right. So tough acts to follow. So fascinating to hear everything that Paul and Andrew mentioned as well. And you'll see some very common themes throughout this presentation as well. We all know, and I think the world is really waking up to the sustainability issues that we have today. So very happy to be here to talk to you about it as well. As Katie mentioned, my name is Annika. I head up the business development team for Loop in North America. Loop is a part of TerraCycle. TerraCycle really is a social enterprise. So what that means is that we are a mission-driven company with the mission to eliminate the idea of waste. We are headquartered in Trenton, New Jersey. We're active in 22 countries and have been around for about 20 years. How we've been primarily working against this, towards this goal, is really to eliminate, again, the idea of waste by looking to recycle the non-recyclable. So in this case, avoiding images like this, what we saw earlier as well throughout various of the other presentations, but really working to find a solution for those not locally recyclable items. This can be in anything really from flexible packaging like chip bags to more complex waste streams like razor blades or cigarette butts, or even dirty diapers, where we have some great programs with P&G in Europe. Aside from that, we also work to incorporate unique waste streams back into new packaging and materials. So working again, with actually beach cleanups to clean up a beach like this and be able to incorporate that into new packaging, such as a Head and Shoulders shampoo bottle. As you can imagine, this type of plastic is very difficult to actually work with because it just degrades. And it's not, most recycling manufacturers don't like to use it because it's too expensive to work with. They cannot make money at the end of selling it, which is where TerraCycle comes in. So we find those partners to be able to work within that space. What we've noticed though is being primarily recycling focused for the past 20 years is that although recycling is really critical and necessary, it is not the end all. It is much more of a Band-Aid on a much larger cut. We cannot recycle our way out of the waste issue that we're in today. So that brings us to what we're doing with Loop, where we're trying to move up the hierarchy of R's. So we're going from reduce, reuse, recycle. We're now trying to move up to reuse in a way that works for the society that we have today. Ultimately, what we're doing is building a global platform for reuse that feels and mimics disposability in a lot of ways. So as a consumer, you can buy anywhere and return anywhere, making it more accessible to everyone, essentially, within this space. We are not inventing anything new here. We're really borrowing some wisdom from the past. This is the image of the milkman that's still pretty prevalent in a lot of places today, and it's actually not so distant ago, where in this case, though, the bottle was an asset to the brand and manufacturer, which means that that bottle was used time and time again. And that wasn't because of sustainability. It was really because of economics. The more times that this milk producer could use that same bottle, the cheaper it was for them per fill. And then the 50s and 60s happened. And this is one of my all-time favorite images because it really just shows context is everything. This was the cover of Times magazine in 1955, I believe, where now it should probably be on the National Geographic. Very different scenario here. But this is actually a celebration of disposability. So this is the post-war era, technologies have increased, materials have become cheaper to make. And this is the first time as a consumer, you really have this emergence of convenience that you haven't seen before, where the message here is, why spend an hour after dinner doing your dishes when you can simply throw them out and spend the time with your family? Go to the movies, do something that's more enjoyable to your daily life. An interesting shift happened here, though, of course, as well. Now you've shifted the ownership of packaging from being an asset to the brand and manufacturer to actually becoming a cost of goods sold for them, which means you as a consumer, when you buy your coffee, you're buying the cup that goes with it. When you buy your shampoo, you buy the bottle that goes with it. So you're now, for the first time, really buying something as a consumer that you have no intent of keeping or using after the maybe 30 minutes, or in my case, 5 minutes when you drink your coffee, for it to only be used once and then really thrown out. So you don't want to own this product. When you have something that shifts to a cost of goods sold, you try to reduce those costs. It's led to, amongst a variety of other factors, this trend of lightweighting in the world today, where material gets lighter and lighter. And unfortunately, as material gets lighter, it gets less recyclable. And again, I just want to point out about recyclability. What I say when I mean is what's practically recycled. From a recycling standpoint, it all comes down to economics, because a material recycling facility, just like a commercial composter, is a business in the end of it. They need to be able to make money at the end after the cost of processing and collection. And the lighter the material that is, the less there is value in it. Essentially, the same thing goes with a lot of the compostable materials that we spoke about, or you heard about earlier. Unfortunately, there's not enough value in that case in nutritional content for those composters to actually use it and make money off of their fertilizer that they sell. That's simplifying it a lot, of course, but you have this juxtaposition here where you now have a vast amount of material that can't be recycled or disposed of in a good way. And the other side of it is consumer interaction with that product actually degrades along kind of the same line. When you have your favorite beverage tonight, I know it's probably on the West Coast a little bit before noon still, but if you have your beer, tonight, or your glass of wine, or maybe your coffee, in all likelihood, if you're drinking it from home, you'd rather have it out of a ceramic or a glass rather than a paper carton alternative. This really shows as well that as a consumer, how you consume your products has a big impact. So what we're trying to do on Loop is essentially combine the best of both of worlds, where we're trying to keep those virtues of disposability, which are really so important to today's consumer, being convenience and affordability, while minimizing those negative impacts on the environment. How we're doing that is by working with brand partners or manufacturers, really allowing any manufacturer, wherever they may be in the markets that we're live in today, to be able to manufacture product in a reusable packaging alternative alongside their single-use sites. This can look like very futuristic, as this Haagen-Dazs example, which is a double-walled stainless steel container that the Haagen-Dazs team has live today in the United States and Canada, which was quite unique. And I want to talk about a very short story there because I find it really interesting. They designed this with the consumer experience in mind, finding that most of the North American consumer eats the ice cream directly out of the pint, usually in bed or on the couch, probably binging some kind of a online media at this point. Myself included. It tastes better out of the pint and you have less dishes to do, going back to that earlier image that we saw of all of the dishes being thrown out. With this in mind, they designed this as a double-walled container, meaning when you take it out of the freezer, it gets to room temperature pretty quickly, so you don't freeze your hands, but the inside actually remains cold, so it melts top down rather than getting that iceberg effect that you would normally get from a carton alternative. Of course, sometimes that's kind of a portion control indicator that maybe goes out of the window here. But it also helps you on the supply chain side, when you take your groceries from the store to home, it stays cooler for longer. So if it's a very hot day, as it is in a lot of the country today, it's not going to melt as easily. So there are some conveniences on both ends. And what this really brings about is that you can really rethink the purpose of packaging when you start to have the intent to use it again and again, because you're now able to put in more resources to it. What Paul mentioned earlier too is a lot of manufacturers and brand partners, cost is a big issue for them. Even that little, the 10th of the cent, I think what that was, it's astounding because it's true though, right? There is ultimately a bottom line here that they need to be able to maintain. But if you're able to use that package again, you can look at it differently from a financial perspective, which means you're using it again and again. If you use it 100 times, it becomes ultimately a lot more affordable. So we allow brand partners to put their product into a reusable container, such as this Clorox container, along the lines of home and body care, to beauty products, to food and snacking products. What you'll see here is there are a lot of different material types. We are materially agnostic. What that means is that partners of ours work with plastic, such as this is a polypropylene plastic, with glass, such as Danone, or with any type of stainless steel or alloy within that case. We're really working towards moving away from single use rather than any one material inside of it. And then of course, we can work with partners such as Kraft Heinz example here, which is using their heritage bottle that they've been using over 100 years. So it brings a bit of that nostalgia as well to the consumer. Finally, expanding outside of just the grocer space, working with partners really all over, whether that be Ulta Beauty, who's our launch partner within the beauty space in the United States, or Kroger and Walgreens in the grocer, and of course, Burger King or McDonald's, where we're partnered with in the UK market. And for those close to the border on the Canadian side here, I myself am Canadian, the Tim Hortons as well, where you can now buy your coffee essentially or your burger in a reusable container rather than a single-use alternative. And then having your favorite grocer really be able to distribute those. So you can buy as a consumer at any of your favorite grocers. These ones are examples of France, where we're live today, or in Japan, where we launched a couple of weeks ago. Ultimately, we are building this platform of convenience, where you can buy as a consumer off-the-shelf products that's already pre-filled. You use it as you normally would, and then you simply return it dirty into a loop return bin, where it gets cleaned, sent back to the manufacturer, and professionally refilled. And then the loop starts again. So it's really trying to bring reuse to a larger global platform. Very quickly, want to show you where we are today. We are live in 6 markets, being the United States and Canada, in the UK and France, and also Japan as of a couple of weeks ago. And we will be launching in Australia with our partner Woolworths beginning of next year. These are some of our partners that we have live today. In the US, you'll see the first in-store iteration go live actually in Portland, Oregon. So not too far from Montana when you're looking at the North American space, where they'll be launching with Kroger in their Fred Meyer banner in September this year, actually, and then following quickly afterwards in New York City and in Portland with Burger King as well. Walgreens will be launching with us early next year. So you can buy your burger from Burger King, drop it off at Kroger, and then get your groceries on the way home. Really, you're acting as if it's a disposable system, with the exception here where you return it. It's not going into a garbage bin or a recycling bin, it's going into a return bin. That's the end of my presentation. Really happy to take any questions and start some group discussion.
Thank you, Annika. That was fascinating, and I am excited to head back to Portland and try this out in the fall. I do a lot of work there as well, so maybe others will take a little road trip and give Loop a try. Yeah, so we do have a few questions that are still in the chat. I've got a list here as well, so I'll go back earlier in the chat and get those first questions out of the way. Let's see. So we had one that's back for Andrew, asking questions about the food in the pouches. And Robin, I don't know if you want to clarify further. You can unmute yourself and ask.
I would, yeah. Thank you, everybody, because fabulous information here. And I guess the question I had for Andrew was, I'm curious about how you make your, what your meals are made out of. I know that you source as locally as you can, and that I remember reading that it's not freeze dried, and that left me with confusion as to what is it. So I'm just curious.
Yeah, so we use a combination between like freeze dried ingredients, air dried ingredients, whatever reconstitute best in a meal. So if you look at our spaghetti, the noodles are freeze dried, but the tomato is dehydrated. Most of our meals, we're sourcing ingredients from manufacturers that are doing the best that they can for sustainability. Like for instance, we're working on a breakfast with acai, and the acai comes from a farm down in Colombia, and it's a family-owned and operated farm, and the government subsidizes the acai down there to get more, I guess, farmers out of coca production. But they have a freeze dry machine right there, and so they pick the acai, they freeze dry it right there, and then it gets shipped to Salt Lake City, and then it gets shipped to our manufacturing facility. So yeah, we're using a little bit of different ingredients just to make sure everything reconstitutes right.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, another question for Paul. How do you go about sourcing your waste and identifying those providers of agriculture or other waste, and what issues have you encountered?
Well, as I mentioned before, the raw materials, the waste, is sourced by each of our partners, and it's sourced as locally as possible. Tell me the question again. I'm trying.
Oh, just how have you sourced it, and what issues have you run into in sourcing waste to use?
What issues have we? Well, none really. I mean, we've stuck to locally sourced waste, which seems to benefit everybody in the end. The waste producers, it certainly benefits our partners to be using locally sourced waste. It's nothing but a benefit to the overall carbon footprint of the manufacturing process. Really, we haven't, I guess I'm kind of shocked at my answer, but we really haven't encountered any raw materials sourcing issues. Many of our customers, you probably noticed, there are quite a few large multinational corporations. You can only imagine the kind of rigorous examination that they put you through before they are willing to engage in business with you. So we've had to answer a lot of questions about our raw materials, about our suppliers and their suppliers and their suppliers, and we seem to have come through with flying colors. So no real issues, other than the one anecdote that I wanted to share with the group about hemp. But
yeah, let's do it.
Do you think, is this the right time? I'll try to make it as brief as possible.
Yeah, we've got plenty of time.
I think you might most appropriately label this as, I think the word is serio-comic, so it's both serious and comic, although you'll be able to tell in an instant who it was serious for and who it was comic for. we were interested in working with hemp because it received so much accolades as a raw material. And as you mentioned, Katie, we get approached by a lot of cannabis companies. And the first thing, I mean, I could set my watch by it. The first thing they want to ask you is, can you use hemp? And, you know, we have to tell them that we just don't have access to it. But, you know, every cannabis company, I think their first choice would be to use hemp as the raw material of choice for them. Well, we became so enamored of this possibility, we decided we wanted to experiment with it. And I had a former colleague who was in the hemp business in Colorado, and I talked to him about it, and he said, well, why don't we do a test? So my manufacturing partner, one of my manufacturing partners in China, in Southeast China, said, yeah, we'll be happy to do that. We're going to need about 25 kilos of it, though, just to do a suitable test. And we were going to create packaging from hemp, you know, not much, but, you know, 25 kilos worth. So he packed it up in Colorado and shipped it to China. It went through customs and sat in customs, and it sat and it sat and it sat until the government decided to take action, and they arrested my partner for importing hemp.
Oh, yikes.
And, you know, here that would have been a simple administrative error. But there it was a major crime. And my partner went to prison briefly while they ironed out the ridiculousness of the whole situation, and was recently let off probation. In fact, we talked the other day and he said, it's a big day. I'm no longer on probation. This broke my heart. These people have been my partners for 10 years. We've been like family. It's just heartbreaking. All they wanted to do was help us run a test with hemp, and they ended up going to jail for it. So I think it was a pretty, it was a cautionary tale about, you know, things are different in different places.
Yeah.
You know, the whole world is not in lockstep over cannabis and hemp. So
yeah, very, very true.
Anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to blab on too long about that, but
oh no, not at all.
Good story for you to retell.
Well, I'm glad that partner is finally done with.
Yes, they're fine.
The haunting of that experience.
We won't be doing any hemp experiments there for a long time.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the only hiccup we've had with raw materials, and it was quite a hiccup.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Paul.
You're welcome.
I have a group-oriented question. If there's something anybody knows on the panel, does anyone have a good alternative to disposable diapers? There's hard time finding services that will do that. I mean, Annika, I know you mentioned that TerraCycle handles diapers, but are there also any other more sustainable or cloth-based or different alternatives to diapers out there that you know of?
Yeah, I mean, there are some really great reusable diaper companies out there. And I would say the challenge is finding one locally that can clean them for you. Because I think there's a fascinating statistic, and I don't have it off the top of my head, but it's something ridiculous, very, very high, that almost like 60% of new parents want to or have thought about trying reusable diapers at some point, if not even higher than 60%, might be like the 86%. But again, I don't have the exact data there, but it was a very, very high percentage. But that, only a fraction of that will actually try it, because there's just a big lift there, of course. And if you're a new parent or any parent who has a family, there's a lot to go within that space. I would say, look, Google what you have locally. There might be some really great niche companies that actually do laundering service of reusable diapers, and just see what that would look like in terms of financial implication. But most of the time, you can have kind of a weekly pickup, and you have your little diaper genie. It's just reusable diapers, and then they get kind of cleaned for you. So check it out. There's some really cool options out there. You just have to think outside the box a little bit.
Thank you. Okay, we have another question that came in the chat. So Whitefish, here where a lot of us on the board and some of our attendees live, we're moving toward a mandatory curbside recycling program. For the first time, it's going to be single stream and instead of sorted. And the question is, does anyone have opinions on waste management recycling processing facilities? For Whitefish, ours is in Spokane. And Karen said she asked the city of Spokane that uses the same facility. They don't really have much info on the end use of those recyclables. So do you have insight into where those things actually go?
And also about that company, because I've heard in the past kind of bad things about waste management. Do they have a good reputation? Company too.
Well, they're the big gorilla in the room. I mean, nobody else is as big as waste management. Doesn't necessarily mean they're doing the right things, but
Exactly.
They are the biggest one. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think they're very good at greenwashing. We know that.
Oh, yeah.
But here we are shipping all of this material to Spokane. So we're using all this energy for shipment, and there's no chance it's going to get in the ocean if it were to go into the dump here in the Flathead. But as soon as we ship it out of town, there's a chance that could end up in the ocean. So trying to figure out, we need to know, where is this going to end up? Because is it better for the environment to ship it to Spokane and really make this a mandatory program? Is that an environmental benefit? Versus focusing instead on just getting everyone to stop buying all this crap. I mean, we have to do a bit of both, but the whole, with waste management, I think the city of Spokane has tried to get information from them, and so far hasn't gotten, that much. But I think as we write our contract, we're going to make sure in the contract that we're able to get some of this information, and we'll see how that works. It's shipped to that facility. It's actually Republic Services that will pick it up. That's the destination, is Spokane.
Okay. Well, that's Avis to Waste Management's Hertz. They're the second biggest waste.
Yeah, right.
Curious why you're having Republic pick it up and haul it to Waste Management when Republic has all kinds of MRFs that they're trying to feed out in the Seattle-Tacoma area. That's where their recycling from Missoula goes, is out there. I don't know if you actually bid on it or not. Helena Recycling looked at the Whitefish contract. And I can tell you, I don't know where my stuff goes after I ship it through the broker, because, goes somewhere, they turn it into little pellets, and who knows where those go from there. So, I mean, good luck getting exactly where, if you want to know where each shipment went from out of the Spokane facility, you aren't going to get it.
Yeah, that could be.
You're a very little dog wagging a very big tail. So
yeah, so Republic, I guess, we don't have a contract with them yet, but they're the ones we'll have the contract with. Republic brings it to Pacific Recycling in Kalispell, and Pacific Recycling then ships it to Waste Management, the facility in Spokane. So that's the way it works.
Well,
that's convoluted, is all I gotta say.
I couldn't see who was speaking, but I agree with him completely. I'm with Annika on this. I mean, recycling is not the answer. And unfortunately, as Annika's images demonstrated, we've had like 6 decades of convenience, and all of that waste has come back to haunt us now. And there's just not a market for it anymore. I mean, we were lucky to be able to ship waste to China because they had such an appetite for using recycled content, but we really ruined that by shipping them garbage rather than really good usable waste. And it was no longer in their best interest to take it, because it, by the time they filtered through it and got what was usable, it just didn't make any sense. So we really caused our own problems there. I hate to sound, pessimistic about it. I wouldn't know where our waste would end up now. I mean, I'm just glad my waste gets picked up. I have no idea where it goes after that, or where it eventually goes, I guess is the question. Because now, you know, the market is so poor, or last time I really did any checking, waste management companies were charging people to take away the plastic waste rather than making a profit from it. They were.
Yeah, Paul, that's a fascinating point. And honestly, it's I think there's this nice graph that I've seen as well from just the city of Philadelphia, but it resonates across all cities actually throughout North America and a lot of European countries as well, that the recycling, what consumers or what recycling companies would get per barrel used to be around like the $60 mark. And now, and it's very, very closely related to the oil price, of course, as well, for a variety of reasons. The new plastic and virgin plastic production is, of course, very tightly linked with with oil, of course. But they're now essentially having to pay almost $160 to actually process it. So they're actually losing money on this as well. So that's why you start to see this effect there. To your question, Karen, earlier, there is no one solution for this. There is no silver bullet in anything that's sustainable. Paul's earlier comment, I thought that was really interesting when you were saying you did a test of creating some packaging out of used athletic wear, which is great. It's doable, it's capable, but it's not a sustainable source because you can't find that many used athletic wear to turn that into. The same method holds true with anything in life. Recycling is not the only solution. Reuse is not going to be the only solution in all cases. You know, there is compostable packaging will work great in some situations, not great in others. Recycling in general, just based off of all of the life cycle assessments that I've seen within this space, is always better than a landfill because the greatest resource implication is the initial extraction from the earth. So if you can honor that material that you've extracted for longer, it's better ultimately within that space. But to Paul's point, it's a vast network. Most of the product that gets collected, if it's especially single stream, it gets sorted at those locations. It gets sorted to other facilities then who can process that in those locations, depending on what that material is. And then it gets broken down, palletized, and sent to a manufacturer. So maybe a new bottle producer within that space. There's transportation included in that, of course, but generally it's always still better in terms of a carbon footprint than a landfill.
Yeah, and I think that's some of what we're trying to, because I'm aware of, you know, quite a few of these issues, but what you have to realize is recycling is coming very, very late to these Montana communities. It's maybe been 6 decades in California. It's just getting here. They're just talking about, this would be the first city in the state of Montana to have mandatory recycling. So at the same time, we're at this crossroads where everyone's realizing this has been a scam and a hoax for 6 decades or whatever, how many decades. It's been kind of a game that the oil companies have been playing with us. So do we fall into this at this point or not? It's you know, right now we're moving forward with it. The council has decided and we're moving forward with it, but that's some of the reason why we can at least ask the companies some of these questions and have it in the contract. We need some proof that this recycling is not going to be shipped overseas. We can ask for that in the contract. Whether we're going to be able to get that, I don't know. But it's, but yeah, recycling is very, very late to so many communities out here. It never existed, barely, you know.
I have a question for Karen and Katie. So what materials is Whitefish going to let people put in their curbside carts? Because I have a real problem with single stream. It's like you scrambled the egg, baked it in a cake, and now you're trying to get the egg yolk back out. And all you're doing is you're just creating more throw out when it gets to that MRF. I toured the MRF in Spokane, probably the first month they were in operation. It comes down to 25 ex-cons and $25 million worth of money to try and separate that egg yolk. And they don't get a very good job. So what materials are you guys going to send them?
Yeah, this is Karen. It's actually Karen, not Karen, but
oh,
yeah.
Okay, sorry.
So, that's okay. Yeah. So I believe we're talking about number 1 and 2 plastics, aluminum, tin, paper, cardboard.
Okay, well, I'm, just so you know, I manage the Lake County Solid Waste Program. And I just went searching for a home for colored number 2s today. And unless they are 100% pure, nobody wants them. If there's one of those off colored number 1s in there, they don't want them. Both Valley Recycling in Kalispell and Republic in Missoula told me the exact same thing.
Yeah, we actually toured the facility just about a week or 2 ago down at Pacific Recycling, where they showed the cubes they make of all the plastics and the aluminum and tin. It's all compressed into these cubes there.
Yeah,
that's what's happening currently, but in the future, like I say, it'll be even more materials all put together and compressed. So yeah, maybe Mark, we can talk some more about this later, but I didn't want to spend too much time since you're kind of talking on a different subject, but I just was trying to put it in perspective of some of the things going on in whitefish right now.
Yeah, no, I think I think it's great that you guys are moving forward with it. I'll be interested to see how it goes with you guys being the first city. Meanwhile, if you have a political curiosity, take a look at what Helena just went through, trying to ban one of the local providers under waste flow regulations from collecting compost, even though the city doesn't offer that service. I mean, you want to see how not to do it, look at Helena.
Okay.
Can I weigh in now that you bring in Helena?
Yeah, sorry, I saw your hand up. I was trying to find a good time to ask you.
So my name is Denise. I'm from the city of Helena. I'm on the Citizens Conservation Board, and we're trying to get the city to reduce its waste stream. We do plan on advocating for an exemption to the city's code that they dusted off. It's from 1988, saying that only the city can pick up waste. Even though waste is not defined anywhere, they're including compost and yard waste. So we're going to be advocating for just a really quick sentence, exempting compost or food scraps. We're not going to call it waste, food scraps and yard debris from that code. So stay tuned on that. But I wanted to mention the problem. One of the problems with single stream, super convenient, right, for the collector, whether it's a city or in this case, waste management. But I can't remember where I saw this, but there's like a 30% or higher contamination rate in single stream collection. And so I'm going to put in the comments here an article about Tucson, Arizona, that had a single stream program. It was making money. The city was doing well financially with this program, and now it's costing them money because the MRF is charging them more because it's so contaminated. And then we have to look at, if you only, that myopic view, right? We're trying to reduce waste, but if the point to reduce waste is to reduce our climate impact, then we need to think about how smart is it to ship all this garbage to all these various places. I mean, China, thank God that stopped working, frankly, because the amount of energy to send all that garbage over there was just crazy. I'm glad it stopped working. But anyway, I am personally not at all a fan of single stream recycling. I know the city of Helena, when they're thinking about a curbside recycling program, they don't want to do source separated, but Helena Recycling, a company here, does do source separated. So it's feasible, even to scale. So I think the horse has left the barn in whitefish, but you can always keep an eye out for it. And then in a year or 2 years or whatever, say, we need to reconfigure this. But good luck doing that with waste management.
Well, you actually had a good segue in there, Denise, about shipping to another question that's in the chat for Annika. So it's, we're guessing it's less expensive and more cost effective for a company like Burger King to sell food in the reusable containers rather than the paper containers they've been using. Is that actually true? But also, who carries the cost of shipping the containers back and the cost of cleaning and all of that? How does that parse out?
Yeah, and I can't go into too many details on cost because it's proprietary information. But what I am happy to say, well, to speak to, Loop is still new, right? We are trying to bring reuse to more of a global footprint within this space. There are some really great local reuse options as well. If you go to your zero waste store, to a refillery market, I'm not sure what what it looks like in Montana. It's been a while since I've been there, but in of course the West Coast and the East Coast here, there are a lot of those popping up, which is really great. What we're trying to do is, again, make it a little bit more accessible for everybody, so you don't have to keep those at home and wash them and clean them and everything within that space. Because you're shifting something and it's a systematic change that needs to happen now. That takes time and it takes resources to be able to shift back to this kind of a reuse model. Ultimately, to the packaging that they're using in the durable packaging tends to be a heavier weight material because it needs to be able to withstand multiple uses. If you imagine your glasses at home, this is going to be a thicker type of glass because it needs to be able to go into the dishwasher thousands of times, probably, so you can have it for 20 years, if not longer. The same holds true for when you're looking at something in a professional reuse system. So upfront, the packaging will cost more for most of our partners because there's just more material in it. But as you start to use it time and time again, it's going to get cheaper per use. So if you use a $1 bottle, glass bottle as an example, 100 times, it's 10 cents, per use. And I hope I did the math right there. I've only had one coffee today, so I apologize if I didn't. But that's essentially how that works within that.
That makes sense. Thank you. Well, I have a couple that I'd love to throw in too, since we have just a few minutes left before we break. I want to ask each of you, what are your future plans and goals for each of your companies? Where do you see the next step of innovation in zero waste going? And we'll start at the top of the order. Andrew, love to hear from you on that.
Yeah, we'd like to, I guess, source more ingredients locally. We'd like to invest in freeze-dry machines of our own. And that way we can just, I guess, lessen the overall fuel footprint of transportation. So that's probably the top of the list for us.
Great. Paul, how about you with PulpWorks?
I guess something that we always aspire to is breaking through some of these, decades old packaging industry. I don't know what you'd call them, paradigms or whatever, the plastic blister pack, just making some breakthrough with some large company that others take notice of. Large corporations seem to be very much like sheep, and they'll follow the leader. And if you can get one of the leaders to make a change, it could mean everything. So we'll continue to push on plastic blister packs or anything that's in circulation in the tens of billions of packages, and keep pushing in that direction.
Great. Annika, what about Loop and TerraCycle?
Yeah, I mean, we keep pushing forward, and we like to think of ourselves more as an innovation company rather than a waste management company, because it's really there. You have to keep working towards it. You have to keep rethinking. You have to keep finding the best solution for what's possible today. So in terms of Loop, our goals really for 2021 are to launch in store with our first partners in the US market. So we're going to get that off live. It is live today on an e-commerce platform. And I warn you, it's a bit clunky, but we know that we're not a retailer. We don't want to be a retailer. We're here to get it in store at your Kroger's and Walgreens and all of the other retailers within the US market. So goal for 2021 is getting those in store, starting with Portland and New York City. Ultimately, that's just where our partners chose to launch first, and then let's get it nationwide. But just having the option as a consumer to make, just like your organic section, it used to be a small section in a grocery store, now it's everywhere. We want to be, bring reuse to the mass consumer like that as well.
Great, thank you all. Well, we only have a few minutes left, so in I guess a short minute for each of you, curious your thoughts on, how can we make sure that, products like the ones that you're making or these reuse models, how can we make that the default, the go-to method in terms of either policy or mandates or citizen support? What do you think needs to happen in the country or regional or local levels to make these business models more of the norm?
Yeah, definitely. I think just the call to action and being more consumers, being conscious about the packaging that they're buying. I think with that will just come more demand for that product. Like for our packaging specifically, it's a manufacturer out of Canada. It's nowhere near the size of the Car Hill and some of the other major corporations. So just more people, I guess, making more conscious decisions and hopefully broadening the industry and making it more efficient.
I would second what Andrew's saying. I spent the first 40 years of my career before launching the business that I have, working for various consumer products companies, and they do listen to their consumers. But you've got to speak up. So yeah, register your displeasure with their packaging. I would say even with retailers, especially large chain stores. I don't know if everybody's bold enough to do this, but you buy something that's completely overpackaged, tear it out of the package in the store, go up to the store manager and say, I intend to buy this, but I don't need all this additional packaging. And I'm sorry for your inconvenience, but if you don't like it, call the manufacturer, because I'm going to keep doing this and I'm going to encourage other people to do this. Eventually they'll start listening to you and they'll get on the phone and they'll call Clorox or P&G and they'll tell them about the trend in their store. It's not going to be overnight, and it's probably going to be forever before it happens, but I don't see us having a regulatory environment like they have in Europe. So it's going to have to come from the consumers.
I completely agree. I like that example. I might try that.
Absolutely.
Well, we're just almost at time, so I want to thank our panelists and speakers, everyone who attended. Really appreciate you taking the time on this Wednesday to be with us. I'm going to post a link to a short survey in the chat, and if our attendees would be willing to fill that out, we really appreciate your feedback. It helps us plan our future events, and we will be back in the fall with our 5th session. We're going to take the summer off to enjoy the great outdoors here in Montana, but we'll be back in September with our 5th series, and you'll find that information on our website as we get a little closer. And finally, I just want to announce our raffle winner. And if Elaine Kaufman is still on, she is the lucky winner of the gift card to Flathead Lake Brewing. So our board members will get in touch with you to make sure we can send you that gift card. And thank you again, everybody. I really appreciate it. Thanks again to our speakers. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.